Super rich fantasy. I grow stronger by spending money. Chapter 1. Mr. Ye will pay for all the expenses tonight. With several screams, the atmosphere in the bar could be said to have reached its peak. Ye Xian looked at the crowd in front of him, who was almost dancing madly, and still felt a little unsatisfied. A large amount of cash was scattered everywhere, making the crowd even crazier, as if they were on steroids. In the midst of the noisy music, he vaguely heard a mechanical prompt. The next second, the crowd swarmed over, and the table he was on collapsed. At the same time, the crystal light above his head also shook. In the last scene before he lost consciousness, Ye Xian's first thought was that he was going to use money to smash the bar owner to death. How dare he make such a shoddy project? He was the son of the richest man in City A. Was he going to die in such a cowardly way? Ding! The system is activating. Detected that the host's life is in danger. Taking emergency measures. Ye Xian slowly opened his eyes and heard an excited voice beside him. That's great. The young master has finally woken up. Before he could react to what had happened, he subconsciously said, "What year is it that you still call me a young master?" After seeing his surroundings clearly, the rest of his words were stuck in his throat. He couldn't help but rub his eyes, thinking that he was hallucinating or that his head was smashed. I have traveled through time and reborn. Many strange memories were stuffed into Ye Xian's mind, and he couldn't help but show a bit of pain. His temples hurt even more, and it took him a long time to digest them. He didn't expect that he would survive a great disaster and even time travel to a fantasy world. It just so happened that he was already used to living a life of luxury. Thinking of the cultivation novels he had read in his previous life, Ye Xian suddenly felt high-spirited. This time, I want to be the main character of ordinary human. I'll work hard to cultivate and become stronger. Hearing the strange words coming from Ye Xian's mouth, the servant beside him was confused. He thought that Ye Xian was still unconscious and didn't take it to heart. The excited Ye Xian didn't notice the servant beside him who wanted to say something but hesitated. In the next second, the servant's words were like cold water, dousing Ye Xian's newly ignited great ambition. Young master, don't be depressed. So what if you have a crippled spirit root? It doesn't matter if you don't cultivate. You'll still have to inherit the family business in the future. What is the point of having such high cultivation? Master would naturally. Before the servant could finish, he was interrupted by Ye Xian. What did you say? Startled by Ye Xian's sudden increase in volume, he stammered, to inherit the family business. Not this one. Crippled spirit root. Ye Xian then remembered that not long ago, the original owner's body had been tested and found to have a crippled spirit root, which made him more difficult to cultivate than ordinary people. Very good, beginning with a nightmare was indeed of mortals, and the kind that couldn't be more useless. In terms of talent, the original owner might be at the bottom, but in terms of wealth, he was born at the winning head start. This continent was known as the Kangxian continent and was divided into the capital city, which was the central province, and north, south, east, and west provinces. The capital city could be said to be the center of the entire continent. It was also the place where the talents gathered and emerged in large numbers. The coastal area of East Province was well developed in commerce and was an important passage for the various fortresses. Trade was very active, so it was very prosperous and had the name of small capital. In addition, the North Province was cold and mostly covered in mountains. It was inaccessible and the conditions were harsh. The West Province was filled with large ancient forests that contained rich resources. The South Province was hot and mostly desert, where various resources were extremely scarce. The Ye clan was the largest chamber of commerce along the southeast coast. Ye Xian's father, Ye Tian, was the richest man. The original owner had been asked to inherit the family business since he was young, but neither the original owner nor Ye Xian had the ambition. It's boring. He's a rich second generation again. What's the fun in this kind of life? It could be said that this body was excellent in every way except for cultivation. Unfortunately, this was what Ye Xian didn't like the most. After all, he had had enough of being a rich second generation in his previous life. If other people knew what Ye Xian was thinking, they might not be able to resist beating him up. This kind of status was what ordinary people wanted, but he was still picking and choosing. Young master, don't dawdle anymore, the servant reminded him. Master still has something important to tell you today. Oh, you're right, Ye Xian replied lazily. He dressed himself up and went to see the original owner's father, who was also his current father, Etienne. The luxuriously decorated hall was priceless. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to earn that many spirit stones in their entire lives. You're not young anymore. It's time for you to learn how to manage the Chamber of Commerce. From tomorrow onwards, you'll be learning with me. Who would have thought that Etienne would refuse on the spot? I don't want it. Father, my goal is to cultivate and become an immortal. Inheriting the family business and idling around is not my goal. Etienne's expression changed. It wasn't that he wanted to pour cold water on his son, but there had never been a case of a crippled spirit root. You have a crippled spirit root. Don't even talk about enlightenment. You can't even break through to earth grade. Man proposes, God disposes. If I don't give it a shot, how would you know that I won't be able to break through? Etienne looked at Etienne's determined eyes, which were now filled with unprecedented seriousness. Etienne looked at him in a new light, and he asked seriously, "Are you serious?" Etienne nodded. Seeing that he wouldn't agree no matter what, even if he was forced to, he probably wouldn't study seriously and might even have the opposite effect. After thinking for a moment, he said, "I'll give you 1,000,000 spiritual stones. You can go out alone for a year. If you still can't break through to earth grade, you'd better come back quickly and stop messing around." "All right." Etienne agreed readily. Words are not proof. Let's high-five as an oath. Clap. With a crisp sound, the father and son's hands touched in the air and then separated. Chapter 2. The low-profile carriage quietly left the back door of the Ye clan. It was plain without the Ye clan's flag and logo. No one knew that the son of the richest man, Etienne, was sitting inside. Neither did anyone know that he was the future heir of Ye clan in the Chamber of Commerce. Etienne sat in the carriage, pretending to sleep. The power system in this fantasy world was divided into sun, moon, star, heaven, earth, and human realms. Each major stage was divided into 9 small stages. The lowest was level 1 of human realm, and the highest was level 9 of sun realm. One who broke through sun realm would be considered to become immortal. At this moment, he was at level 2 of human realm, and even this level was the result of the original owner's hard work of consuming a large number of rare treasures and forcefully cultivated. If other cultivators took the treasures, they could at least cross a few levels. However, for the original owner, it only changed from 0 to 2. There was not much change at all, which was enough to show how crippled his spirit root was. I was too careless. Etienne was filled with regret. If he'd known this would happen, he wouldn't have promised Etienne to break through to Earth Realm. Now that he thought about it, it was simply impossible. Etienne must have known this, and so he readily agreed. In any case, he knew that Etienne wouldn't be able to complete the task and would obediently come back to inherit the family business a year later. What a good move to advance by retreating. It's said that people in business are more scheming, and Etienne was extremely scheming. After all, the original owner had used so many precious materials to reach level 2 of human realm, but now he only had 1,000,000 spirit stones. It sounded like a lot, but his expense was like running water, not to mention that training was a money-burning matter. If he wanted to rely on these 1,000,000 spirit stones to buy resources to increase his cultivation, then why didn't he just stay at home? Why did he have to come out and make a living? Sigh, the road is long. I haven't even taken half a step. Just as Etienne was thinking about his future path, he felt a violent bump and almost fell out of the carriage. What happened, Uncle Son? It seems like the carriage has been tripped. Etienne lifted the curtain and looked down. Someone had set up an inconspicuous roadblock below. If a passing carriage was not careful, it would easily fall. This was obviously man-made. However, when he looked around, he found that he was far away from the bustling urban area. There were big trees everywhere, and weeds were overgrown. He could only hear the chirping of insects and birds. It's the wilderness. Who would be bored enough to put this here? As soon as Etienne said this, he realized that something was wrong. He suddenly had a bad premonition and hurriedly urged, "Uncle Son, run." However, it was too late. The sound of horses' hooves came from behind. From the sound, there were probably more than a dozen people. When Etienne left home, he only brought this old man but no one else. Etienne said that he was going out to explore, not to enjoy life. There was no point of bringing so many people. He didn't even arrange a bodyguard for Etienne. He just wanted to make Etienne back off. Xian understood his thoughts, but he didn't fall for it. He was also unyielding, so he brought along Uncle Sun and left with the money. Uncle Sun had traveled a lot when he was young. He quickly realized what had happened and his face turned pale. Young master, sit tight. As soon as he finished speaking, the carriage shot out like an arrow. If it wasn't for Xian's quick reaction and holding on to the cabin next to him, he would have been thrown out. Xian's eyes suddenly lit up, and he looked at Uncle Sun as if he was looking at gold. Poor Uncle Sun, with his age, he felt uncomfortable under Xian's gaze. He couldn't help but say, "Young master, why are you looking at me like that?" "Uncle Sun? No, I should call you Elder Sun. I can tell you're not a simple person just by your driving skills. As the only child of Ye clan, how could father let me go out alone? He must have arranged for an expert like you to follow me." Uncle Sun looked ordinary and had no cultivation. In fact, he was like an old man in a ring, bracelet, or jade pendant in the fantasy novels that Xian had read in his previous life. His identity wasn't ordinary. He usually didn't make a move, but when he did, he would definitely be able to kill everyone present in seconds. He would only appear when the main character was in danger and turn danger into safety. Uncle Sun couldn't help but interrupt Xian. "Young master, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm just good at driving." Xian was stunned. He looked at Uncle Sun several times and saw that he didn't seem to be lying. This wasn't going according to the routine at all. The bandits behind them were riding on horses, so they were naturally faster than Xian and Uncle Sun. They caught up very quickly. "The people in front, listen up. If you stop the carriage now and hand over the spirit stones, I might consider letting you go." This group of people looked like frequent robbers, so Xian didn't believe their nonsense. But if this continued, they would catch up sooner or later, and it would be hard to tell whether he would live or die. He didn't want to die before he could succeed, but he had nothing on him except for the 1,000,000 spirit stones. Xian immediately came up with a plan. "I can give you the spirit stones, but these are all I have." Xian threw out a large number of spirit stones, and with the speed of the carriage, the spirit stones fell behind like rain, leaving the bandit gang dumbfounded. They had seen people spending money like it was dirt, but they had never seen someone scattering spirit stones like this. The group of robbers immediately started fighting over the items like crazy. Uncle Sun's eyes widened, but he saw that Xian's movements were extremely familiar, as if he had done it thousands of times. After all, he had done this in his previous life. "I got this first." "Nonsense, I was the one who picked it up." "Sixth brother, you've secretly picked up so many but you're still unsatisfied." The group of robbers was busy picking up spirit stones, so they didn't care about Xian. Xian and Uncle Sun could even hear the sound of their arguments, and there were even signs of a fight. Uncle Sun was thoroughly convinced. "Young master is really smart." Ding! Congratulations to the host for activating the Be Prodigal to become stronger system. Xian was stunned. He thought that he had hallucinations at first, but then he felt overjoy later. As a reborn time traveler, how could he not have a plug-in? He was even depressed because of this for a long time. Xian couldn't help but mutter, "System, what took you so long to appear?" "I was already activated, but the host's life was in danger and I had to resort to emergency measures. That's why I'm only turned on now." Xian thought back carefully. This sound did appear in his mind when he had lost consciousness, but he thought he had heard wrong. It seemed that his reborn was the work of the system. "I see, but what does this Be Prodigal to become stronger mean?" "It's very simple. In the modern city, Be Prodigal means spending money or squandering. In the fantasy world, Be Prodigal is naturally spending spirit stones. As long as you keep squandering, you can become stronger." Spending money to become stronger, was there such a good thing? Whether it was in Xian's past life or this life, as a rich second generation, he couldn't do anything. However, he was the best at spending money. "I'm familiar with being prodigal." Name, Xian, a name not to be underestimated in fantasy novels. Age, 20. Fortunately, you still have time to work hard. Stage, Level 2 Human Realm, created by heavenly and earthly treasures. Physique, trash, the worst trash in the world. Cultivation technique, none. Work hard, young man. The more you squander, the more you'll have. Item, none. Good luck, young man. You'll get everything if you squander more. Prodigal points, 0. Host, you're so weak. How dare you claim that you're a second-generation prodigal? A transparent panel appeared in front of Yexian's eyes. It was similar to the online games he had played in his previous life. It was his personal attributes, and he could clearly understand his current situation at a glance. He looked at the words in the brackets in awkward. The words were deliberately in bold and marked red, as if the system was afraid that he couldn't see them. It was simply a mockery of him. System, what do you mean by those words in brackets? I meant it literally. Did I hit the host's sore spot? Yexian couldn't be bothered to argue with it. He found that there was a prodigal point in the last row. What do you mean by prodigal points? Isn't it something that can be obtained by spending spirit stones? Host, do you really think it's that easy to squander? A friendly reminder, the system provides the current world's currency limitlessly. Please grasp the scale of squandering. Spending less is not considered squandering, but spending more is a big cash cow. Only the right amount of squandering, spending spiritual stones and currency, can be counted as prodigal points. After Yexian saw the rules clearly, he was immediately a little disappointed. He thought that as long as he found a place to buy a lot and pick the expensive ones, he would be considered a prodigal. It turned out that there were so many tricks to it. As he had said, there was no such thing as a free lunch. He couldn't help but sigh. It seems that it's not easy to squander these days. I have to squander with certain standard. You can get a certain amount of prodigal points or system items by completing the random mission issued by the system. If you fail the mission, you will lose a certain amount of prodigal points. You will also get prodigal points if you squander away your daily products. Otherwise, the corresponding prodigal points will be deducted. The prodigal points can be used to increase the host's realm, skill proficiency, and exchange for various props and items. For more information, please explore it yourself. The continuous beeps in Yexian's head made him realize the importance of the prodigal points. The system had set up many rules, but they all revolved around squandering. It was not easy to squander, or else it would be too easy for others to take advantage of the loopholes. Although the prodigal points would be deducted every now and then, it should not be too difficult for him to earn the points as long as he avoided the traps and completed his tasks well. Squander sounded very simple, but if it was another matter to implement it according to the system's rules. Newbie mission, consume 1 million spirit stones and receive a newbie gift bag. No penalty for failure. Mission time limit, 3 days. Before Yexian could figure it out completely, the mission already appeared. Fortunately, the system still had some humanity and there was no punishment in failing the mission. However, where could he go to spend 1 million spirit stones now? Young master, Xingqiang is right in front of us. Why don't we take a break there before continuing our journey? Uncle Sun's voice pulled Yexian back from his thoughts. Unknowingly, they had already been on the road for more than half a day. In addition to the fact that they had been avoiding the bandits non-stop, both Uncle Sun and the horses were somewhat tired. If it was in the wilderness, there would definitely be no chance to squander, but there might be a chance in the town. Thinking of this, Yexian said without hesitation, then let's go to Xingqiang and take a look. Not long after the two entered the town, they saw that the entrance of the inn was packed with people, looking very lively. The inn was one of the buildings there, and the decorations were quite exquisite. The words ZYCN Inn were written on the antique plaque, and a faint fragrance wafted out from it, tempting people to have a meal inside. There was a long line at the entrance, but there were only a few people inside. They didn't look like they were eating. Yexian couldn't help but ask, "What are you all doing?" The middle-aged man sized Yexian up. "You just entered the town, right?" Yexian nodded. "You don't know yet, but today is the day that the fairy takes in disciples. Everyone is waiting." Only then did Yexian know that not long ago, a mysterious woman had come to Xingqiang and established a sect. Although her strength was unknown, her origin was a mystery. According to the cultivators in the town, she must be a strong expert. Even though it was a new sect, everyone was still scrambling for it. It could be seen that cultivation was the goal of almost everyone. Yexian even found low-level cultivators among them, which made him curious. What kind of charm did this woman have? After all, everything was difficult in the beginning, and the newly established sect was not as good as the old sects. At this moment, someone shouted, "She's here." The moment someone finished speaking, a powerful pressure suddenly descended. Everyone trembled, and the originally lively crowd instantly became silent. Everyone lowered their heads, as if there was a towering mountain pressing on their shoulders. They could not even straighten their bodies. It took a moment for them to barely adapt. Even so, their expressions were somewhat ugly. Is this the majesty of a powerful cultivator? Yexian endured the discomfort and looked up at the person. A graceful figure descended from the sky. She was wearing a white veil and looked like an immortal. She was as cold as ice and her skin was as white as jade, as if it was made of ice and snow. Her beautiful eyes swept through the crowd and she said indifferently, "I am Han Yu, the sect master of Taiqing sect. Today, I am hosting a banquet at Zyxian Inn to recruit disciples regardless of their talent, age, or cultivation. Those who are fated to be accepted may enter the inn to attend the banquet." Yexian was a little stunned. He didn't expect the mysterious fairy to be such a peerless figure. No wonder these people were crazy like this. They were probably attracted by her face too. Even in his previous life, Han Yu's face was a peerless beauty. No one could compare to her. After all, whether it was her appearance or temperament, she completely surpassed some popular stars. There was no point of comparison at all. He couldn't help but sigh, she's just like her name. She really looks like Fairy Gushi from the Moon Palace. The crowd was in an uproar again. There was actually such a good thing? This was what they were most worried about, but now Han Yu said that she would not consider anything. This meant that the possibility of them entering Taiqing sect was extremely high. That's great. I thought I wouldn't stand a chance because of my poor aptitude. I didn't expect that she wouldn't even consider on this aspect. That's right. I was already old and had already been rejected by several sections. I thought that I would never have the chance to cultivate in this life. Who would have thought? Everyone was overjoyed, and only then did they remember the additional conditions Han Yu had mentioned. Perhaps it was because of the previous words that gave them confidence. Someone in the crowd boldly asked, "May I ask Sect Master Han Yu, what do you mean by fate?" Han Yu's lips curved slightly. In an instant, the surrounding was like the spring in March when the ice and snow melted. Her watery eyes were full of light, making one unable to help but be intoxicated. The power of her smile was so great that many people were stunned. After all, Han Yu was the cold beauty type. One could imagine how much influence she had on the crowd when she suddenly smiled. She opened her red lips and said, "Donate 50 spirit stones and you may enter the outer sect. Sit at the lower table. Donate 500 spirit stones and you can enter the inner sect. Sit at the middle table. Donate 5,000 spirit stones to become a direct disciple. Sit at the upper table." Han Yu looked at the hundreds of men and women in front of her and directly explained what fate was. For a moment, everyone thought that they were hallucinating. The entire place fell silent, and everyone's expressions became extremely strange. Yexian almost laughed out loud. "I understand. You and I are not fated. It's all up to me to spend money." He had learned something new today. He didn't expect to see such a classic trick from his previous life in a fantasy world. "Sect Master Han Yu, you're not joking, are you?" Someone stammered. "Do you think that I'm joking?" Seeing Han Yu's serious expression, everyone was speechless. 50 spirit stones isn't that expensive, but, however, 50 spirit stones for an outer sect disciple sounded like a cash cow. After all, everyone knew that outer sect disciples usually didn't enjoy any benefits from the sect. However, they were not stupid enough to spend 500 spiritual stones to enter the inner sect. Who knew if it was true? Previously, Han Yu had said that she had no requirements, but now she suddenly mentioned spirit stones. No matter how they looked at it, she didn't seem too reliable. If it wasn't for Han Yu's face and aura, everyone would have thought that she was here to cheat them of their money and run away. Even Yexian felt that it was too similar. After all, this kind of thing was common in his previous life. Is this a lie? How can there be such a good thing? One can enter the sect as long as they have spirit stones. Doesn't matter about one's aptitude, cultivation level, or age. That's right. It's not like other sects haven't come here to accept disciples before. I heard that they're all very strict. I've never heard of any sect that only needs spirit stones to enter. This fairy looks like a decent human. She can't be a scammer, right? We've to pay before even entering the sect. If we really enter the sect, she'll definitely squeeze us dry. I'm not that stupid. The crowd whispered, and the voices of doubt grew louder and louder. After all, no one wanted to be treated as a fool. Moreover, no one took the lead, so who knew how the situation was there inside? Han Yu's expression didn't change. She noticed everyone's suspicion. Sect Master, they won't believe us if we ask them to hand over the spirit stones without any evidence, the old man beside her couldn't help but say. Han Yu frowned slightly. This group of stupid and ignorant mortals. It's already a great honor for them to be able to receive my guidance and become my disciple. How can they be so unsatisfied? They're not even willing to take out a mere 50 spirit stones. Han Yu's previous price was even higher, 5,000, 50,000, 500,000. If the old man hadn't stopped her and told her that this was the mortal world, the situation was special and it was not a particularly prosperous place, the crowd would have been scared away when they first heard the price. They don't even know how to cherish such a great opportunity in front of them. Han Yu's expression flickered as she clenched her fists. If it weren't for that group of people, I wouldn't have to bow and scrape for 50 spirit stones. I'll remember this, and I'll definitely get back at them 100 times or 1,000 times over one day. It turned out that Han Yu came from the upper realm and cultivated alone all year round. She only had an old man as her companion. However, she was shot down to the lower realm by a plot, and her strength was sealed. The best way to revive was to have her own power, which was to establish a sect. This was why the disciple recruitment banquet was held at Zyxian Inn, waiting for the fated person to appear. There were many treasures in the Han Yu's space, but her strength was sealed and her realm had fallen, so she could only open a small part of the space. If it wasn't for the fact that my cultivation level is not high enough, the spatial zone hasn't been fully opened, and many things can't be used, I wouldn't have to rely on these people's spirit stones. There's only so little, but I still need to cheat for the stones. When I return to the upper realm, I'll definitely make those who once plotted against me pay a painful price for what they've done. At the thought of this, Han Yu's face turned frosty and her mood became worse. The temperature around her dropped by several degrees, and the crowd also vaguely noticed that something was wrong. Don't tell me that she's angry because we hit the nail on the head. We've better be quiet. The old man saw that the situation was getting worse, so he couldn't help but say, you all have misunderstood. The sect is still in its initial stages of construction, and there are still many things to be done. That's why we need to gather resources, and thus we're introducing the Spirit Stone donation system. Even so, the crowd still found it hard to believe. Han Yu didn't want to waste any more time with this group of people. Let's go. Staying here is a waste of my time. If I had known earlier, I would have gone to a more prosperous town. The people there wouldn't care about these spirit stones. Just as Han Yu was about to leave, a man's voice suddenly sounded. I'm paying 50,000 spirit stones. Which table can I sit at? Everyone, including Han Yu, was stunned. Someone was really willing to hand the spirit stones over, and it was doubled. In Qingchang, 5,000 spiritual stones were enough to feed an ordinary family for a few years. What kind of concept was 50,000 spiritual stones? There was actually such a fool in the world. Ye Xian walked out of the crowd. Seeing that he wasn't well dressed, his clothes were very ordinary, and his cultivation wasn't high, the crowd obviously didn't believe him. Stop bragging, kid. 50,000 spiritual stones? It's already good enough that you can take out 50 spiritual stones. 50,000 spiritual stones? Bah! Under everyone's suspicious gazes, Ye Xian walked towards the carriage. The spirit stones immediately piled up into a small mountain, almost blinding everyone's eyes. They didn't expect that getting a slap in the face would come so quickly. The people who said this earlier wished they could find a hole in the ground to hide in. Looking at their dumbfounded expressions, Ye Xian wanted to use this method and effect to shock everyone. After all, squandering required a high profile. What's the point to be prodigal if there were no spectators? The old man hurried over to take a look. There were definitely 50,000 spiritual stones, and even more than that. The way he looked at Ye Xian suddenly changed. This man could actually take out more than 50,000 spiritual stones so easily, which showed that he was definitely not an ordinary person. Everyone's expression became extremely strange, complicated, surprised, and incredulous. This person must be crazy? He had too much money and no place to spend it. Who is he? He actually took out 50,000 spiritual stones without even blinking. He must have a mine at home. Which clan's prodigal is he? I'm afraid that one cannot afford to spend like this even though one has a gold mine. Everyone's eyes were either filled with envy or jealousy, and they all spoke in various ways, but none of these affected Xian. At this moment, he could be said to be the focus of everyone's attention. Even Han Yu couldn't help but be attracted by the scene. To be more precise, she was attracted by the pile of spirit stones. It was as if the fairy of the Moon Palace had finally been affected by feelings and emotions in the mortal world. Even her eyes seemed to be bright, and they were no longer as aloof and unapproachable as before. She said directly, "You're the distinguished guest? Sit at the elder's table." Hearing this, everyone gasped. This guy was actually directly promoted from a disciple to an elder. Money talks. It seems that this is true. As long as you have spirit stones, there is nothing you can't buy. Everyone couldn't help but sigh. They didn't know whether to say that Xian was too rich or that the position of elder of Taiching sect was a bit too casual. However, all is fair for Xian and the sect. They had no position to say anything. Xian's cultivation wasn't high, but he had so many spirit stones with him. In addition to his behavior, the only thing left that he didn't do was to write the words cash cow on his face. Just as everyone's thoughts were wavering, Xian felt that it wasn't enough and dropped another bombshell. What if it's 500,000 spirit stones? 500,000. They didn't even dare to think about what kind of price it was. Everyone's eyes were wide open. It was clearly a busy street, but the scene was terrifyingly quiet. Everyone's expression was the same, and time seemed to be frozen in this place. The mocking words were stuck in their mouths. Thinking back to Xian's behavior just now, it made them lose face and no one dared to say anything even though they didn't believe it. Even Han Yu and the old man lost their composure, but Han Yu reacted quickly and said, "If you can really take out 500,000 spiritual stones, you will be the next sect master." Sect master, this kid is only a level 2. Human realm cultivator, the old man beside her couldn't help but say. Han Yu's face was expressionless. She looked otherworldly, but the words she said were very different from her looking. If he can take out so many spirit stones, I'll even say the same to a mortal who hasn't even drawn chi into his or her body, let alone someone at human realm. However, if this kid is joking or lying to me, Han Yu's eyes were extremely cold, I will make him regret being here. Everyone was in an uproar. 500,000 for a sect master? Chapter 6 Translator, Nuevo Studio Editor, Nuevo Studio. The crowd didn't know whether they should pay attention Xian's ability to spend 500,000 or the fact that he could obtain the sect master position easily. There were too many things to complain about, and they simply didn't know where to start. Xian revealed a mysterious smile and handed over the space ring on his hand. The old man slowly took it, and his hands seemed to be trembling. When he saw the spirit stones inside, his breathing became irregular. He didn't say anything. He just bowed and nodded to Han Yu. The smile on Han Yu's face became more and more brilliant. Everyone swallowed their saliva, looked at the old man, and then looked at Xian, although he didn't say anything. But Xian and Han Yu's attitude already explained everything. At the same time, a system notification sounded in Xian's mind. Congratulations to the host for completing the newbie mission. Consume 1 million spirit stones. You are rewarded with a newbie gift pack. Han Yu told Xian to rest for a while and that she would take him back to the sect after the matter here was over. After bidding farewell to Han Yu and the others, Xian rested in Zyxian Inn. Zyxian Inn was the largest inn in Qingchang, and the owner was quite powerful. In addition to the patrol guards in the town, the laws also were strict. Therefore, there was no need to worry about anyone having evil intentions. Moreover, everyone thought that Xian had taken out all his assets and was left with nothing. After all, he had spent so many spirit stones, so he probably didn't have many on him now. Back in his room, Xian told Uncle Sun not to be disturbed by anyone. Then, he locked himself in his room and opened the panel to check the situation. Name, Xian, a name not to be underestimated in the fantasy world. Age, 20. Fortunately, you still have time to work hard. Stage, Level 2 Human Realm, created by heavenly and earthly treasures. Physique, trash, the worst trash in the world. Cultivation technique, none. Work hard, young man. The more you squander, the more you'll have. Item, newbie gift pack. Good luck, young man. You'll get everything if you squander more. Prodigal points, 500. You have taken a small step forward. Continue to work hard. There was basically no change, except only the newbie gift pack and prodigal points were enough for Yexian to make profit. I didn't expect to get so many prodigal points after completing the task. If a few more come, wouldn't it be too much? For a moment, Yexian was overwhelmed by excitement. System, are there any more missions? Hurry up and arrange 100 or 80 for me. However, the system ruthlessly poured cold water on him. The mission is randomly issued. There is no penalty for failure for a newbie's mission. However, there will be a penalty for failure in future missions, and prodigal points will be deducted according to the situation. Please take note. Then how can I obtain the highest prodigal value in the shortest time? The system has no comment. Please explore on your own, host. Yexian wasn't surprised to receive the system's answer. If it was so easy to obtain, then there would be no difficulty. The system would definitely not allow such a loophole to exist. Open the newbie gift pack. I wonder what's inside. Yexian had also learned to be careful. It seemed that he had to be careful when he took on missions in the future and had to act within his means. If he took on everything, his prodigal points would be deducted if he couldn't complete the missions. Wouldn't that be too much of a loss? Congratulations to the host for obtaining the meridian and marrow cleansing. Would you like to start now? Meridian and marrow cleansing? It sounded great, but Yexian was a little worried. If we cause too much of a commotion, will we be discovered? No, I need to find a place with less people. Yexian was in disguise. Fortunately, he had secretly taken a few treasures when he left the Ye clan, one of which was a jade pendant that could hide his aura and had a defensive function. Without attracting anyone's attention, Yexian came to the back of the mountain of Qingchang. Most of the resources were located halfway up the mountain or in the east. Although there was a lot of vegetation in the back mountain, there was nothing good. Therefore, there were very few people who came. After making sure that there was no one around, Yexian was finally relieved. System, start the meridian and marrow cleansing now. The moment he finished speaking, a golden light enveloped Yexian's body. In an instant, the wind and cloud surged, and the spiritual energy within 100 miles suddenly began to riot. Then, as if the energy had gone crazy, it rushed into his body. On a cliff in the east, a group of people suddenly stopped. What's wrong with the spiritual energy? They could feel the spiritual energy suddenly dissipating. To be more precise, it was surging toward a certain place. When they looked over, they found that it was surging to the direction of the back mountain. The purple clouds in the sky were brilliant. This was a rare color, as if the fortune was coming. This strange scene made them suddenly stand. What happened in the back mountain? Could it be that a rare treasure has appeared? They didn't know what to say and decided to go and take a look. At this moment, Yexian was suffering unimaginable pain. He could clearly feel the spiritual energy crazily washing all over his body and flowing through his meridians. The immense pain almost made him scream. The trashy system didn't even tell him that meridian and marrow cleansing was actually so painful, and he wasn't prepared for it. His face was pale, and the wrinkles between his brows were so deep that they could almost squeeze a word die. Large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his back had long been drenched in cold sweat. He looked as if he had just been fished out of the water, and he was in a very sorry state. If Yexian could look inside, he would find that the meridians in his body, which were originally the size of a strand of hair, had been widened in an instant. Furthermore, they were expanding outward at an extremely terrifying speed. In the end, they were even comparable to large rivers. The spiritual power in the blood was constantly being extracted and purified, leaving a light golden liquid that flowed along the blood to the Beihui A cup ointment, Tianqi A cup ointment, Kaijing A cup ointment, and the other major acupoints. In Wuxia terms, his 8 extra meridians had all been opened. In the fantasy world, he had reached the level of a celestial being. After the intense pain passed, a warm current slowly flowed through. Yexian's brows finally relaxed. He felt as if he was soaking in a hot spring. All the pores on his body opened, and it was extremely comfortable. Chapter 7 Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio. What did it mean by heaven and hell was only within a flash of thought? Yexian finally understood what was going on with this operation, and his bones almost fell apart. He slowly opened his eyes, and there was a faint golden light that flashed past. He felt unprecedentedly comfortable and relaxed. His body was as light as a swallow, and he even felt as if he was about to ascend to the heaven. Is this the benefit of meridian and marrow cleansing? It's indeed extraordinary. Xian couldn't help but sigh. It was really good, but the pain just now was also extreme. He had almost fainted. If it wasn't for his strong willpower, he would have already passed out. However, the benefits he obtained were also huge. He felt full of strength. Maybe it can even wash away my useless spirit root and replace it with a more powerful spirit root, such as a lightning spirit root, which is not bad. Xian's lips curled into a smile as he thought about it happily. He wanted to see his spirit root, but in the next second, his smile froze at the corner of his mouth, and he couldn't help but curse. Reality bit. Where did my big spirit root go? System, hurry up and explain. The system is unable to explain. Please explore on your own, host. The veins on Xian's forehead bulged. For a moment, he really wanted to pull the system out of his mind and beat it up. The system probably sensed his extreme emotions and quickly tried to salvage the situation. Don't worry, host. It's a good thing that you don't have a spirit root now. Have you ever heard of the saying creating something out of nothing? No, Xian replied expressionlessly. Anyway, the system won't cheat you. After saying this, the system pretended to be dead and went offline. No matter how Xian shouted, there was no response. Forget it, so be it if he didn't have a spirit root. Under normal circumstances, without a spirit root meant that he had no fate with cultivation. He couldn't sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and he couldn't draw spiritual energy into his body. However, the key was that even though Xian had a useless spirit root before, he had already drawn in spiritual energy. Although level 2 of human realm was a little low, it was still a grade. Therefore, the current situation was a little strange. Even he himself was not sure what was going on. However, the more amazing thing was that ordinary people could only open up a few acupoints at most, while cultivators could only open up around 20 to 30 acupoints according to their cultivation levels and realms. Even the top powerhouse could only open up slightly more than 50 acupoints. Xian had opened more than 70 of them. It could be said that he himself was a huge container. As the saying went, the sea contains all rivers, and the greatness contains everything. Others were like streams and rivers, but Xian had the entire ocean. They were on completely different levels. It was enough to crush all the heroes, and the starting line was many times stronger than others. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was standing at the top and looked down on all living beings. This meant that he could accommodate any power and physique. In the future cultivation path, he could be said to be the kind that could draw inferences and understand everything with one point. He could be said to be a genius among geniuses, an extremely abnormal talent. For a moment, Xian didn't know whether this was good or bad. The key was that he didn't even have spiritual energy, so it was useless even though he had opened up so many acupoints. Xian seems to have thought of something and squeezed out a sentence from his mouth through gritted teeth. If I'm not wrong, every time I level up, the spiritual energy in these acupuncture points should also be filled up. There are so many acupuncture points. How long will it take if I were to fill all of them up with spiritual energy? Then I'll have to stay in level 2 of human realm for the rest of my life. System, come out. I promise that I won't hit you. After Xian's repeated greetings, the system, which had played dead and gone offline, finally appeared. This is your good fortune? Many people have tried their best and even risked their lives to open up these acupuncture points. Now that you've opened up so many in one go, it's something that others can't even ask for. You should be secretly happy. If I pass the fortune to you, do you want it? Xian took a deep breath and barely managed to calm down. He originally thought that he would be able to get a supreme grade celestial spirit root after the meridian and marrow cleansing. But in the end, even the original useless spirit root was gone. Xian cursed. Then tell me, where can I get the spiritual energy needed for so many acupuncture points? The system store is at your service. You can use your prodigal points to exchange for items in the mall. You can also use your prodigal points to increase your level. Xian laughed coldly. So the trick was here. He knew that there was no such good thing in the world. Random mission, consume 100,000 night luminescent pearls. Rare treasure, night luminescent pearl, contains a large amount of spiritual energy. Mission success reward, 500 prodigal points. Mission failure, randomly deduct prodigal points. Mission time limit, 3 days. Do you want to accept the mission? Did he still have a choice? If he didn't want to stay at the level 2 human realm for the rest of his life, he had to earn a lot of money. Yes, Yexian said without hesitation, I accept. It really was the black-hearted system? Yexian put on the jade pendant that concealed his aura and quietly returned to the inn. However, not long after he left, a group of people came up behind him. Even though he had already walked far away, the powerful aura he left behind had not dissipated. It was as if a peerless expert was meditating and cultivating here. Everyone could not help but be shocked. What kind of person is he? Just his aura alone is enough to make us fear. I wonder who the real person is. Fortunately, he has already left. If he had seen us intruding, he would definitely be furious. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but feel lucky that the expert had already gone far away. There's actually such a person in Qingchang, and we didn't even notice him before. It seems like he's hiding his aura. We have to be careful. We can't be too brash in case we offend others. If these people knew that the master that they feared of and respected was only a level 2 human realm cultivator, what would they think? Chapter 8 Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor, Nyoibo Studio. Hey, did you hear that someone spent 500,000 spirit stones to enter Taiching Sect? Taiching Sect? What is that? I've never heard of it. It's a new sect that was established half a month ago. The sect master is both good-looking and powerful. She hosts a banquet at Zyxian Inn to accept disciples today. 50 spirit stones is the entry condition. 500,000 spirit stones? Are you sure? Which cash cow is this? I'm afraid that he can even get into a high-level sect with this price. That's right. Who knows what these rich people are thinking? Soon, the news about the 500,000 spirit stones spread throughout the entire Qingchang, and everyone in the streets was talking about it. Yexian was even more careful when he went out, for fear of being recognized. After all, it wasn't a good thing to be too famous. When Han Yu met Yexian again, she frowned slightly. She felt that he had changed a little, but she couldn't tell what exactly it was. Didn't you have a crippled spirit root before? Why is it that the spirit root is gone now? Han Yu was shocked. She used her divine sense to confirm repeatedly and was sure that Yexian's spirit root had disappeared. Yexian only felt a cold aura surrounding him. He wasn't worried that Han Yu would see anything wrong. The jade pendant that covered his aura could also cover the existence of acupoints in his body. If people were to find out that he had opened up so many acupoints, it would definitely set off a turmoil in the entire continent, or it would be the scheme of other people with ulterior motives. He didn't want to get into any unnecessary trouble. I wanted to improve my strength previously, so I ate a lot of heavenly and earthly treasures and elixirs. But I don't know how I became like this. Yexian revealed a distressed expression and told her the excuse that he had prepared. There were actually a person who ate random things and lost his spirit roots. Han Yu had first learned about this, but there were more rare things than this in the upper realm, so she was not surprised. Forget it. If you don't have it, then so be it. At most, I'll just create a new spirit root for you in the future. Han Yu said it lightly, but she had forgotten that this was the lower realm. Creating the spirit root was not something that ordinary people could easily do. So far, Yexian had never heard of anything about creating spirit roots. Besides, Han Yu's reaction to his lack of spirit roots was too calm. Her identity must not be simple. Yexian didn't reveal her. Thank you, Sect Master. However, I'm afraid it'll be a little difficult for you to become the Sect Master since you don't have a spirit root. In any case, Yexian's ambition wasn't to become a Sect Master. He spent the money only to complete the mission, so he deliberately said that before this. After all, it was too troublesome to be the Sect Master, as he had to manage the entire sect. I'm not interested in the position of Sect Master. I'll just be an idle elder. Han Yu was a little surprised. She didn't expect that this man would spend so many spirit stones just for the position of an idle elder. She was more pleased with this kind of person who spent money quickly and was sensible. All right, I'll bring you to meet the other people in the sect. We'll also go and choose a spiritual mountain today to officially establish the sect. You're also considered a senior figure in our Taiching sect. Yexian was a little speechless. It turned out that the sect had not even been established yet, and it was just an empty name. Han Yu was actually empty-handed in Zyxian Inn. For a moment, he felt as if he had been led astray. Han Yu seemed to have read his mind. Although our sect has not been officially established, We still have what we should have. You'll know later. Ye Xian looked at the row of more than 20 people in front of him with a skeptical attitude, and an unlikely guess appeared in his heart. Don't tell me, these are the elders of our Taiqing sect. Come and meet them. It was really as he thought. Did this group of people all pay spirit stones to enter? He thought of Han Yu's disciple recruitment banquet at Zy Xianin, although he was the only one who handed over the spirit stones in the end. However, just this one person was already comparable to thousands. He had already obtained 500,000 spirit stones. Why would Han Yu care about a few hundred or a few thousand? Therefore, Han Yu didn't stay any longer. Anyway, Ye Xian alone was enough for her. Capital. Seeing that Han Yu had led others in person, everyone couldn't help but feel a sense of danger. Their eyes landed on Ye Xian like a radar and found that he was only at level 2 of human realm. Their expressions suddenly changed, and even their eyes were filled with inexplicable sarcasm. It seemed like he had also spent a large amount of spirit stones. Who would have thought that Han Yu's words would make everyone dumbfounded? From now on, Ye Xian will be the person with the second highest status in Taiqing sect after me. The others couldn't stand still anymore. All of them had a higher cultivation level than Ye Xian. Now, a level 2 human realm cultivator had climbed to the top, and he was just a kid. Originally, Great Elder Shenhai was the most likely candidate to inherit the position of the sect master. Ye Xian's arrival not only threatened his position, but also weakened his power. Shenhai's eyes darkened. He would never allow this to happen. However, he was a scheming person. Even if he was dissatisfied, he would not say it out loud. He turned his eyes and immediately looked at the 18th elder. He was an extremely young man with a jade-like face. He looked extraordinarily handsome, and his eyes were fixed on Han Yu as if he had lost his soul. He was wearing a purple and gold robe, and even the hidden pattern on his chest was mixed with gold thread. There were embroidered patterns of auspicious clouds and dragons, and also a jade pendant at his waist. Any one of them was a good magic weapon, enough to show that his family background was extraordinary. The 18th elder was the only child of the Xie clan. His family background was indeed not bad. He had also relied on donating a sum of spirit stones to become an elder. However, he had other intentions in becoming an elder. When he first saw Han Yu, he was so shocked that he wanted to pursue her, hoping that she could become his dual cultivation partner. Chapter 9 Translator, Nyoibo Studio. Editor, Nyoibo Studio. It was a pity that it was an unrequited love. Han Yu was only thinking about her revenge and did not care about these worldly affairs, so she did not take it to heart. Also, this group of people from the lower realm was not worthy of her, so she did not take Xie Yuxuan to heart. Even so, Xie Yuxuan did not give up and tried to get close to her. Shenhai's eyes turned and he already had some ideas in his heart. He walked to Xie Yuxuan's side and said softly, "Elder Xie, I really feel sorry for you." Xie Yuxuan glanced at him. He had only known Shenhai for a short time and had not interacted much with him. He was a little confused. "Why do you feel sorry for me? You and the sect master are a perfect match, and your family background is so extraordinary. I think you are the most worthy of the sect master. I have high hopes for you too." Hearing this, Xie Yuxuan's face was filled with pride, and even his tone became much friendlier. "First elder, what are you saying?" But. Shenhai looked at Xie Yuxuan and helplessly said, "Didn't you notice that the sect master treats this kid very differently? She actually brought him here personally and even emphasized on his status and identity." Xie Yuxuan sneered, "He's not worthy. He's only at level 2 of human realm. The sect leader would only be interested in him if she's not blind." He didn't take Ye Xian seriously. Such a person wasn't worthy of being his competitor. Shenhai sighed, "Maybe he's not worthy, but the sect master has eyes for him. Have you and I ever been treated like this?" These words somehow did make some sense. Xie Yuxuan's expression gradually turned cold, and he could not help but feel a sense of crisis in his heart. Seeing that the fish was now on the hook, Shenhai's lips slowly curled up and he continued to adding the trimmings. "You see, if this brat's tongue is glib some more, wouldn't an otherworldly woman like sect master be easily deceived by him?" Before he could finish her sentence, Xie Yuxuan interrupted him through gritted teeth. "He wouldn't dare." "Thank you for your kind reminder, Great Elder." Looking at Xie Yuxuan's appearance, Shenhai knew that his plan had succeeded. He didn't need to do anything, and someone would naturally settle Yexian. At this moment, everyone was gathered together. It looked harmonious on the surface, but there were undercurrents surging in reality. Yexian could feel an extremely cold gaze. He turned around and found that it was a young man about his age. Han Yu seemed to have introduced him as the 18th elder. Xia Yuxuan snorted coldly when he saw Yexian looking at him. He was obviously not pleased. Yexian felt a little strange. He didn't know how he had offended this person, but he didn't take it to heart. After all, there were so many people present, and they were all extremely unconvinced of his sudden appearance. I've gathered all of you here today to choose a mountain for our section. I wonder if anyone has any suggestions. The ancient map slowly unfolded in front of everyone, and they saw a few places circled in red. They were Cloud Waterfall, Hidden Mist Forest, Qixia Mountain Range, and Wuling Yuan. These places have more abundant spiritual energy. They're suitable for the establishment of a section. How about the Cloud Waterfall? There are very few demonic beasts there. If the sect is built there, it can avoid attacks from demonic beasts. As soon as the second elder opened his mouth, the third elder objected, but the Cloud Waterfall is very steep, and it's very inconvenient to get in and out. If it's a disciple who can't ride a flying sword, it's impossible to get over. I think it's better to go to Wuling Yuan. The fifth elder hesitated and said, but there are already a few sects around Wuling Yuan. The resources have been divided up. The competition is too intense. We have just been established, and we can't compete with them. What if someone comes to find trouble with us? The fourth elder's expression was cold as he said domineeringly, I'll beat up as many as they come. Whenever a new sect is established, people will come and find trouble. If you're afraid, why establish a sect? You might as well go home and farm. His words seemed to be mocking the fifth elder's cowardice. Fifth elder's expression changed slightly. What do you mean by that? Then tell me, which place should we choose? Why don't we choose Hidden Mist Forest? The fifth elder said without hesitation. There are many resources there, and there is no sect there. Everyone looked at him as if they were looking at a monster. There are many resources there, but there is no sect. Why don't you think about why? Who didn't know that Hidden Mist Forest was filled with fog all year round? Moreover, the ancient trees inside were intertwined with each other. The trees covered the sky and the sun. It was like a maze, so it was easy to get lost in it. It was said that many people would disappear every year, which gave it the name Hidden Mist. I think you're going to make the disciples of Taiching sect as dinner for the demonic beasts in the forest. The food has already been delivered to the door, so how can they not eat? The second elder said sarcastically. Everyone's faces were red, and they were on the verge of fighting. Everyone had their own opinions, and no one could convince the other. Everyone hoped to choose a place they liked as the sect's address. Only Yexian was the quietest among them and didn't express his opinion. Elder Ye, what do you think? As soon as these words came out, the entire place fell silent. More than a dozen pairs of eyes fell on Yexian at the same time, with their eager gazes. Yexian's mind was wandering, thinking about how to complete the task and earn prodigal points. He didn't expect Han Yu to suddenly call his name. I don't have any opinion. Which one do you think is a better position? Yexian didn't think too much and pointed casually, let's do it here. He was referring to Qixia Mountain Range. There were mountains and trees here, and part of the terrain was flat. There were not many sects in the surrounding area too, so it was a suitable location for a sect. The only drawback was that there were often demon beasts going out nearby. Qixia Mountain Range then, Han Yu said after some thought. Chapter 10 Translator, Nuovo Studio Editor, Nuovo Studio. No one had thought that Yexian's suggestion would become Han Yu's final decision. Sect Master, the sect's location is not a child's play. You must be extremely careful. Although Qixia Mountain Range is good, there are many demonic beasts there. It's not suitable to establish a sect there. Han Yu didn't think much of it. It's just demonic beasts. They are also found in other places. Seeing that everyone was about to say something, she continued, I've already made up my mind. There's no need to say more. A powerful pressure was released. After all, Han Yu was the sect leader. It was not easy to change her mind, so they didn't need to say more. Everyone looked at Yexian secretly. They didn't expect him to have such a great influence on Han Yu. After all, it was just a casual sentence. Xia Yuxuan, in particular, was so jealous that the fire in his eyes was about to solidify. At this moment, he could no longer hold back and said, "Sect Master, how many spirit stones did this kid pay? I'll double it and get him out of Taiching Sect immediately." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's expressions changed. Although they were all dissatisfied with Ye Xian, he was still someone brought here by Han Yu, so they couldn't easily flare up. Xie Yuxuan was different. He would do anything to pursue Han Yu. Now that he saw Ye Xian, who appeared out of nowhere, seemed to have a lot of weight. Coupled with Shen Hai's ridicule, how could he bear it? "You're just at level 2 human realm and you dare to point your fingers here? You have no position to speak." Xie Yuxuan glanced at Ye Xian but did not see Han Yu's strange expression. Ye Xian almost laughed when he heard this, but he held back his laughter and said, "If you can give me double the amount, I'll leave?" His pause seemed to be meaningful. "I'm just afraid that you don't have that many spirit stones." Xie Yuxuan looked as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. "Why don't you go and find out what kind of place the Xie clan is? Let alone 10,000 spirit stones, I can even take out 100,000 spirit stones." This was not an exaggeration. As the only child of the Xie clan, Xie Yuxuan was also the most talented person in his generation. It could be said that the Xie clan extremely doted on him and poured all their resources on him. However, if he knew about the incident at Zy Xianin, he would definitely regret saying such words. "What if it's 1,000,000 spirit stones?" Xie Yuxuan blurted out, 1,000,000 spirit stones also. Then he looked angry, thinking that Ye Xian was making fun of him. "I'm afraid that you're crazy. How can you have so many spirit stones? You don't even know how to make a draft when you're bragging. Judging from your poor appearance, I'm afraid that you don't even have 10,000 spirit stones." One must know that Xie Yuxuan had spent a lot of money just to get a smile from the beauty. He had only spent 10,000 spiritual stones to enter Taiching Sect, but this was already an existence that the other elders looked up to. "I spent 500,000 spirit stones," Ye Xian said expressionlessly. "Doubling it is 1,000,000 spirit stones." Xie Yuxuan would never believe that Ye Xian had so many spirit stones. After all, Ye Xian looked ordinary and his cultivation was pitifully low. When the other elders heard this, they all looked as if he had gone mad. Why would someone offer 500,000 spirit stones just to enter a newly established sect? At this price, even those big sects would have to respectfully welcome Ye Xian in. Wherever he went, he would be treated like an ancestor. "What kind of daydream are you having?" the sixth elder said sarcastically. "If you can really take out so many spirit stones, I can even eat the soil on the ground." Everyone thought Ye Xian was joking, and their mocking and disdainful eyes fell on him. This kid is talking nonsense. There's no truth in his words. Ye Xian's expression was indifferent. "Whether it's true or not, you can just ask the sect master." Han Yu's mouth curved slightly, and she looked like she was watching a good show. When she saw everyone's eyes on her, she said lightly, "That's right. He did spend 500,000 spirit stones." It was as if everyone's throats were stuck, and they couldn't make a sound. At this moment, it was so quiet that even the sound of a needle falling on the ground could be heard. 500,000 spirit stones? There were actually people who had so much money and nowhere to spend it. It wasn't that the Xie clan couldn't afford it, but it would cost them almost all of their savings, as well as the businesses they had outside. It could be said that the entire Xie clan would have to be emptied. Ye Xian and Han Yu were neither relatives nor friends, so it was impossible for her to lie for him. At this moment, everyone finally knew why Ye Xian, who was only at human realm, could get such treatment from Han Yu and even had a status above everyone else. Ye Xian came to Xie Yuxuan. 1,000,000 spirit stones and I'll leave immediately. Xie Yuxuan's face turned green and red, not sure if it was from anger or embarrassment. He had wanted to start with money, which he was best at, but he was slapped in the face. "I don't think you have that amount either." Ye Xian's sarcasm made Xie Yuxuan so angry that he couldn't even speak, especially in front of Han Yu. He wanted to find a hole in the ground and hide in it. The elder who had threatened to eat soil silently retreated to the back of the crowd. And the one who said he wanted to eat soil, "Stop hiding. I can see you. Hurry up. The soil is still fresh." The elder stopped retreating on the spot. At this moment, he didn't know whether to advance or retreat. It was as if he was placed on top of a pot of oil. He regretted his previous interruption. Ye Xian just stood there calmly. He was clearly only at human realm, but he had the aura of heaven realm. It was probably because of the 500,000 spirit stones. Han Yu didn't expect Ye Xian to have such courage. She looked at him differently. All right, then it's settled. Qixia Mountain Range will be the address of my Taiching sect.